Hey everyone, welcome to Weirdest News in History with me, your host Ben Chasteen, and or Weirder News Wednesday. So tonight I'll be talking about number 5. While a man was fishing, the fish he caught ended up nearly killing him in an extremely bizarre incident. Find out what happened tonight. And number 4, in a bombshell report through a FOIA letter, the Pentagon is finally admitting what we've been saying for decades, that they have been holding and testing wreckage from UFO crashes. And number 3, the U.S. Navy has been granted a patent for an advanced aircraft which resembles a flying saucer. And number 2, China's U-22. It's a pun there, Y-U-T-U, which is pronounced U-U, U-2. U-22 the rover finds 2 glass spheres on the far side of the moon, which looks exactly like what I took with my own camera just a few months ago. So we'll be showing that. And number 1, the University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil is investigating if Beethoven's music can destroy cancer cells within the body. The results may not rock you, but they could definitely shock you. So stay tuned to hear the weirdest news in history with me, your host, Ben Chasteen. All right. Okay. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's having a great Wednesday. Some great stuff for today's show. I'm still waiting for the Epstein files. Like every day, every hour, I'm like, did they release it yet? Everyone on Twitter or X is trying to figure out when that's going to be released because we were promised that it's going to be released. So I'm still waiting for that. But anyway, let's jump right into this. Number 5. Man almost dies after a fish he caught nearly kills him. So this poor 28-year-old dude almost died after a Dover soulfish he caught jumped down his throat after it wiggled free from his hands, freaking him out and probably freaking the fish out too. I don't even know how that would fit down your mouth. That's just crazy. He stopped breathing for 3 minutes and even turned blue. His friends tried to give him CPR and then called 911, or since it's the UK, it's 999. Believe it or not, they arrived in just 2 minutes. So clearly this is not in New York City or any major city out there, because that would not happen. But by the time the patient had gone in, or by that time that his friends were trying to save him, he already went into cardiac arrest and stopped breathing. The scariest part was they're having a hard time pulling the fish out because I guess the gills opened up inside of his throat, and so they couldn't even get it out. So when the paramedics came, they were trying to do this. By the sixth go, they finally yanked it out. By that point, he hadn't been breathing for 3 minutes. I'm sure the fish was dead at this point, but who knows? They finally revived the man in the hospital or in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and after being treated and checked over in the hospital, he was allowed to come home and he made a full recovery. But one of the paramedics said, "I have never attended a more bizarre incident and don't think I ever will." So fish was 5 inches long. Okay, man, that's just super weird. I don't even know how that would happen.
Yeah, how does a fish accidentally jump down your throat? I need some more information about what happened. How was his mouth open at the perfect angle for the fish to jump down it?
I know, that's what I'm wondering too. How is that even possible? I mean, was he trying to do something weird, or was it just that's just what happened? The world will never know. Only him and his friends probably actually ever know the truth of what happened that day. But anyway, I'm glad he's okay. That does remind me of another story I heard, maybe for another time, which is even worse than that one. But dealing with fish and paramedics. So yeah, told to me by a friend of mine who used to be a paramedic, and I was like, what the heck? That's the craziest story I've ever heard in my life. So maybe one of these days I'll show it on here. All right, number 4. Moving on. You want to play the intro, Lindsay? but you guys would love that story either way. So eventually, I'll get the. I'll see if there's reports about it because he said it was so. What happened was so because he had a radio in and he's like it's on all the channels, and when they got to the hospital, he's like every single media was there covering this. So he's like you can definitely find stories about it. So I was like, ooh, I'm gonna use that one on Weirdest News one of these days. So I'll do it. I'll probably do it in like a week or two if I can find it. Hopefully I can find it. But anyway, all right, moving on. More serious stuff here. Number 4, FOIA releases a release about crashed UFO. So FOIA is Freedom of Information Act. So it's Freedom of Information Act releases information about crashed UFO. So this is a bombshell report from the Pentagon, who are finally admitting that we've been saying for decades that they have been testing wreckage from UFO crashes. So this researcher by the name of Anthony Bragala wrote to the Defense Agency, or Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, requesting details of all UFO material. Now, when you make a request to this, by law, they have to like tell you what they have unless it's classified. If something is actually classified and it's like, well, sorry, we can't release this information. A lot of the stuff is not classified, but they'll only release it. You have to know what you're asking for. That's the problem. So there could be so many more things out there. But anyway, Anthony wrote this about, after receiving this, he says this could include physical debris recovered by personnel of the Department of Defense as residue, flotsam, which is, like just random junk or something, and coming out of a spacecraft, shot off material or crashed material from unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAPs, or UFOs. The DIA released 154 pages of test results that includes reports on a mysterious memory metal called nidinol, which remembers its original shape when folded. So this is kind of interesting because this confirms what happened at Roswell, in 1947. This is the material right here, supposedly. So this is Major Jesse Marcel at Fort Worth Army. And after, because they originally came out in the first report of Roswell saying, yeah, there was a downed craft, unidentified craft. We don't know what it is. And supposedly this is that material. They said that it was like a, imagine foil, like, tin foil or aluminum, and that you could like span it out for a whole entire room, but then you can crinkle it up to the size of a tiny little ball. But then when you let go, it goes back into the size of the whole room. And he said it was like so tiny that they could crinkle it up and then it would just like expand out. So like, with aluminum, once you crinkle it up, it's like you'll never be able to get the creases out unless you're like, go through some kind of process, not with this kind of material. So it's kind of interesting that this collaborates with each other. Now, the Sun media wrote, Anthony said it was stunning admission from the U.S. government. I mean, I would say so too. And the documents reveal that some of the retrieved debris possesses, quote, extraordinary capabilities, including the potential to make things invisible or even slow down the speed of light. Like, what the heck? Wait, what? I mean, this changes physics from our understanding. So this is crazy. He told The Sun, the Pentagon has admitted to holding and testing anomalous debris from UFOs. So, and then also like Rob and I, we've talked to a couple different insiders who, on the surface, they're dealing with like cybersecurity or something else related to government, but then they're like, yeah, my real job is, contracting through NASA or a different space agency or whatever to collect debris. And from what we know, there's like over 1,000 incidences just within the US alone about space junk that falls from the sky. It's like most of it's us, but a lot, out of 1,000 different pieces, That's a lot per day when you think about it, right? At least a couple per day. But he said, yeah, a lot of this stuff is not from Earth. I'm like, ooh, what does that mean? So pretty crazy stuff there. But I mean, this is like a really mind blowing doc. This came out in 2023. I don't. I mean, I'm sure Rob and I have, like, we do so many live shows. I'm sure we brought this up, but 2021. So we might have talked about it when it first came out. But I think what really caught my eye that I didn't notice before is that the potential to make things invisible or slow down the speed of light. I really want to dive into that a little bit deeper. So for a future episode. All right. Moving on to number 3 here. Speaking of UFOs, now we're coming to the Navy that secretly designed a super fast futuristic aircraft resembling a UFO, and the documents reveal. I mean, we kind of have talked about this before, but I just thought it was interesting putting these two together. Of course, this is kind of like your standard TR-3B, what it looks like. And the military, so I mean, this is like a official Navy patent, though, and I think this is why I like talking about this so much. This isn't some like random dude, like, sitting at his home coming up with these designs. I mean, this is like an official Navy patent that sent this in. So my understanding is, like, of course it's just a patent, but most likely they already developed this. So, and it talks about inertial mass reduction device that's built into this to travel at extreme speeds. What this means is that to reduce its mass and lessen the inertia. Inertia is like the resistance. When an object is in motion, it's the resistance of that object, like, for example, the air or whatever, that slows it down a little bit. So they're like, even like space agencies, the aerospace industry, even cars are always like, how can we lessen the resistance of inertia, so more aerodynamic or whatever. But this is not just about the design of it. This is about something inside of the craft that is using advanced technology to change the outer appearance of the craft, or at least the outer propulsion system of the craft. So what is incredible that it goes into technical detail about how the craft generates its own gravitational waves as a form of propulsion. So then if it's creating its own gravity, then therefore it's not affected by this gravity, nor is it affected by like the air or anything else to have any kind of resistance. So, and believe it or not, gravity waves were confirmed in 2016. And of course, Einstein brought that theory in. But in 2016, they did notice gravity waves being produced when two black holes collided with each other in 2016. So it's just, all this stuff is super fascinating to me. So the paper states it's possible to reduce the inertia mass and hence the gravitational mass of a system object in motion by an abrupt perturbation of the non-linear background of local space-time. And that's very jargon heavy, but basically, in a nutshell, imagine a craft that just doesn't push through the air, but slides through reality itself, almost bending physics with tech. And I mean, it really sounds like something straight out of like a sci-fi script. So in other words, it's like, as it's moving, it's warping and bending the space-time around it. So therefore it's not affected by the space-time in this physical dimension. So it's almost like moving in another dimension, which is why it's able to move so fast. And that's what it's kind of saying. And the fact that they can even come up with this language to describe that in a scientific way without sounding, too Star Trek, is pretty insane, honestly. And I mean, for anyone that understands gravitational waves, that is kind of the premise of time travel. And that's supposedly what all these devices are doing too. So in other words, as I understand it, this is not just going super fast, but actually traveling interdimensionally, like I said. So the craft also features another patent with a cavity wall filled with gas, which is then made to vibrate using powerful electromagnetic waves. So there's an example of this, believe it or not. And this is all in these patents and documents. This is so insane. So this creates a vacuum around the craft, allowing it to propel at high speeds. Once again, I mean, exactly what we were talking about. Probably using some kind of plasma-like energy too. Uh, the patent actually continues with, it is possible to envision a hybrid aerospace undersea craft, which they call HAUC. Like instead of a UAP, it's HAUC, which, due to the physical mechanisms enabled with the inertial mass reduction device, can function as a submersible craft capable of extreme underwater speeds and enhanced stealth capabilities. This hybrid craft would move with great ease through the airspace water mediums by being enclosed in a vacuum. So, in other words, it's like it doesn't matter if it's underwater, in space, or in our air. It would just fluently just go through all three like it was nothing. And that's probably why these crafts underwater they're seeing them so fast. And there are reports of the Navy seeing these underwater crafts that are like zooming so fast, probably because they're not completely in our dimension, which is why, they're not affected by anything, whether it's water or air, or wind or anything. The crafts are not affected by that. So super crazy. And there's further evidence the military is developing this like exotic technologies, as sometimes they're called. So it was earlier this year, the government came out and said they were investigating wormholes, anti-gravity stuff, invisibility cloaks, warp drives, all kinds of stuff, And these are, once again, and this is actually stuff that has been researched with this ATIP program. And it's like we're talking about DARPA, and then there's like, this ATIP, which is way more advanced than what DARPA is doing and stuff. So it's like, who knows what other organizations are out there. So, and then I was just happened to look online because I was like, what other patents are there? There's something called directed energy deposition to facilitate high speed applications. So this is kind of basically what we're just talking about. But it's like way more jargon heavy. There's also this some kind of solar thermal thruster cooling systems and thermal energy transfer and rockets. I mean, there's just all weird patents out there for all kinds of stuff. Fuel-free spacecraft propelling system based on atomic oxygen and propelling method. What does that even mean? Spatial atomic oxygen? I don't even know. But it's, that one's a little bit over my head there. But I don't know, Lindsay, does that make any sense to you? You're a little more with physics, deeper into physics than I am.
Looks like the spacecraft would be fuel free, so it runs on something like free energy, and that's what makes it propel forward. But that thing is based on some spatial atomic oxygen and propelling method.
Well, that's the energy right there. That's spatial atomic oxygen. But what the heck does that even mean?
Well, I was thinking about this where they said it's possible to reduce the inertial mass. So if you had like a ball or a car and you want to get that moving, if it's got more mass to it, it's difficult to get it moving. But once it's moving, it should keep moving unless something like air resistance slows it down. So that's why a car company wants to design a car where like drag and airflow actually won't slow it down. So in the case of a spaceship, they want to reduce the inertial mass. So if it has less mass, the inertia will keep it moving theoretically. So you can reduce the inertial mass and the gravitational mass of a system or object in motion. I don't know how. Are they taking mass away somehow by like eliminating it in other dimensions? I don't know how they're reducing that mass, but they are. And they're doing it via an abrupt change of the background of local space time. So somehow they are changing time in the background of space in order to reduce the mass of an object and keep it moving. That sounds like something right out of Star Trek.
It sure does. It really does. And that seems to be exactly what's going on with this. So weird, weird things. But I mean, this is all cool though. I just can't wait till all this stuff starts coming publicly. But I mean, this is all the stuff that they've been working on for decades now. So makes our gas powered cars seem so obsolete and ancient compared to all this stuff. But yeah, that's where the money is right now. So I mean, that's probably why we're not seeing any of this yet, because it might be too easy to actually make, or no way to make money off of it, especially free energy. You know, that's what happened to Tesla. So all right, let's continue on with our space scene with number 2 here. China's U-22 rover finds glass spheres on this far side of the moon. So again, this is YU, which is pronounced U, and then TU, which is pronounced two, and then the letter or the number 2, so it's U-22. So yeah, so anyway, even though this is from China and I don't trust any of their space exploration stuff pretty much nearly at all, because really it's just all space domination or just space lying. This is still very fascinating. I actually do think that this is real, because I'll get into that in a minute. So during China's lunar mission to the moon, Chang'e 4, which is the name of the lunar mission that they went on, they found what they called several translucent, spherical, and dumbbell-shaped glassy globules, or globules, like balls, glass balls. Um, so there they are in these photos right here, and this is weird. I'm gonna come back to why this is so strange. So a team examined these images taken by the panorama camera on board the UU-2 rover, and the globules are transparent and translucent, and they said they're kind of a brownish color. Now this is what's weird. They're saying they're only like 5 centimeters. Then how in the heck did they even pick this up? You know, and I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe these are only 5 centimeters. Um, but they said these glass globules simply blow our minds, since they are so unique on the moon. They have no idea how they got there, how old they are, or where they came from. But they said they are very similar to um or no, I'm sorry. Yeah. So anyway, they've just been researching this, and they also found, remember that weird arc that they found on the moon too, that the China's rover found, and then they came back and was like, oh, that was just such a rock found formation or whatever, and it's like, yeah, no, that was like an arc on the moon. But this is kind of interesting, because I took this photo. So I have a Nikon, what is it, the Nikon P1000 or whatever, you know, and they discontinued it. So I bought it right before they discontinued it. And I mean, this is more than 5 centimeters here. This is about probably like 3 football fields, but it's almost the exact same thing. And I was just taking photos of the moon, and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, wait a minute. There's something in this photo. And I got different I took different photos of it. And so for this photo, yeah, it's in the bottom left side there. And Rob and I did talk about this on the show one time. Yeah, right there. And we figured out what crater it was. And I can't remember off the top of my head what crater it was. But when we looked at the photos that NASA had, there wasn't this thing on the moon. And it does look like some kind of glass object. But this, again, this thing is massive. You know, I'm almost thinking it might be some kind of satellite dish, or maybe something in that nature. But yeah, it's super weird. Oh, that's the sun. That is a photo I took of the sun. You know, and everyone's like talking about whether the sun is yellow or white, and it's like, this is definitely weird. You know, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I definitely remember a yellow sun, but I think in some aspects the sun is still yellow. Maybe I don't know. All this stuff in the Mandela effect is weird. But anyway, I think there's a lot more on the moon than what we're told. I think there's always more things on the moon than what we're being told. So, all right, let's move on to our number one. And kind of taking a break from the space scene, we have Brazilian scientists investigate whether Beethoven has cancer fighting properties. This was actually one of the most interesting things that I've looked into in quite a while. So supposedly there was a research paper that was made, and New York Times also reported on this. This was from Gizmodo. There was some other media that reported on it. Um, and I did find an official study on the NIH website, which is the um, I always forget what it stands. National Institute of Health. Yeah, and it mentions exposure to music alters cell viability and cell mobility of anyway, it's just jargon heavy headline. But anyway, so what does Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and cancer have in common? At the sound of both of them, they could spark fear of terror. Beethoven's Fifth Century, dun 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 dun. It's really intense. However, according to the study at the Federal University of Rio Janeiro in Brazil, Beethoven's most famous symphony might have the ability to fight against cancer. According to the study, which has now been removed from the official website of the university and even scrubbed online, even videos posted about the study have been removed. Which is weird. And then Snopes is now debunking this, and other places are debunking it because you can't find the study anymore. But Gizmodo actually had it on their website, and the doctor is a real person. I even found his profile online in the Brazil Institute. This is him or her, sorry, right now. Dr. Capella. But according to it, once upon a time in 2000 or 2011. Now, they had this on the site in 2011. The study is from 2010, but there was an update, but there was nothing on the Wayback Machine in 2010. Like it's just not there. I looked everywhere for this. Now, there is a news report in Brazil which mentions the study and how the study was conducted. And this is what we found, or what they found. And this is again from Dr. Campella. Says Dr. Campella and colleagues performed a series of tests in 2010 exposing dish cultures of both healthy and cancerous cells to audio playbacks of various music genres. And repeated tests, Dr. Capella found that recordings of Beethoven's Symphony No. 5 in C minor destroyed around 20% of cancerous cells within a few days. 20% of cancer cells within a few days, yet the healthy cells were unharmed. A similar result was obtained by Atmospheres. It was composed by, I'm not even sure how to pronounce this guy's name, something like Gregory Ligeti in 1961. But curiously, perhaps, no measurable changes in cell growth were found for Mozart's Sonata of the Two Pianos in D minor, which is another famous piece by Mozart, or like another famous piece, one of Mozart's famous pieces. Possible mechanisms which might have produced the results are as yet entirely unknown, though it's speculated that they could be related to the rhythm, frequency, or intensity of the music. And they're talking about Beethoven's Fifth here. The team plans further tests beginning in April of 2011, using samples of Brazilian samba and funk, and like funk music for Brazilian time. So they're going to try different kinds of music. So this is so fascinating because clearly they did this. There's all this evidence, and now it's all been removed. And now they're trying to debunk this, like, oh, this was a fake study, or the study doesn't exist. And it's like, well, yeah, the study was real. The person who did the study is real. So this is really mind blowing because because right now when I looked up online, it was like, oh no, this isn't a real study. This is fake. This is fake. And it's like, no, this is real. They actually did this. This is crazy. Not saying that if you listen to if you have cancer or anything, listen to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, it's guaranteed to heal you or something. But it's worth a try, right? I mean, they always said classical music is the best medicine, or music in general, but specifically classical music. And Chinese, especially with Shen Yun, the classical Chinese performance that plays, they actually talk about this in the show as well, and they mentioned that the character for music and medicine, and their state on ancient Chinese knew that music had the power to heal. So the Chinese character for the word medicine actually comes from the word music. So if you look at the Chinese character um, medicine, the character for music is inside of it. Over the course of 5,000 years, the worldview that man and heaven are one and that all matter has life has permeated every aspect of the Chinese culture, including the music. So it goes on to say that Chinese music, for example, uses the pentatonic scale, and its 5 notes are connected to the Chinese theory of the 5 elements. The 5 elements are in turn connected to the human body's 5 main internal organ system. And the pentatonic scale, that's actually, that's for, you can play that on any instrument. I mean, it's kind of the first thing that you learn on usually for any instruments, so especially guitar. But yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. So I was just really blown away by this, because I was like, I wonder if there's anything to this, because I was seeing memes about it and everything, and some people are like, oh no, this wasn't a real study. And then when I started looking into it, I'm like, dude, this was a real study, and it completely got wiped online. So I think that, especially anything related to this cancer and everything else, it's like, there's a lot of money. And I mean, if you could just listen to music and heal yourself of cancer, it's like, can't prescribe that very well, or can't make money on that, unless you hire a full symphony to play for you, which would be pretty amazing itself. So, um, I'm surprised with that one though. I've always kind of looked at that one as like it's one of Beethoven's darkest symphonies. So I'm kind of surprised that one specifically targets cancer. Like I was thinking it would be like Beethoven's ninth or something like that, and instead it's Beethoven's fifth. Dun, 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 dun. So anyway, it's just kind of interesting. It's one of the most famous classical pieces in history, though. I didn't realize that until I started looking into this. So, all right, Lindsay, what do you think?
I think that I heard a study. I heard about a study, I think it was in the 60s, that they did, where this kid had cancer or a brain tumor. It was something like a brain tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried this really strange alternative method of healing him, where they had him picture he was into video games. They had him picture that he was playing like a Space Invaders kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine blowing up this,
Oh yeah.
object in front of you and targeting it with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
They had him do that over the course of, I don't know, this is just from my memory, like several times. They had him imagine blowing up this thing with his mind, and he
Yeah.
actually destroyed his own tumor. So I mean, the power of your mind is really powerful, and so is music and vibrations. So I assume if Beethoven's music is that intense and it kind of inspires a feeling in you of
Mm-hmm.
like going to battle with your own enemies inside your body, yeah, you could totally blow up your own cancer cells.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard another story. There's a woman that I was talking to a long time ago when I was doing massage therapy, and there was a little boy that also healed himself of cancer, and they asked him how he did it, and he just said he kept picturing himself as Luke Skywalker flying around in an X-wing, and like instead of shooting at the Death Star, he was like shooting at the cancer. So, and he was just playing that in his mind like over and over again. So interesting. Um, And of course, we have our Power of the Mind series on Rise TV too. So if you guys, which we do kind of get into that, maybe not those stories directly, but we talk about that. But Lindsay, show this link real quick. This is so fascinating. So we'll play. I just want to play the beginning of this. This is Beethoven's Fifth on YouTube. This video has 71 million views. So yeah, this is it. Anyway. I mean, when you listen to that, it's like I just can't help thinking like, man, how do you come up with this stuff? You know, it's like Darth Vader's march in Empire Strikes Back. The first time anyone ever heard that, it was just like the same feeling of this mind-blowing feeling like, holy cow, how did they do this? So, but if you listen to The Planets by Holt, I think, especially Mars, you can find a lot of references to some of the Star Wars stuff, especially related to the Empire that John Williams came up with. And it's like, oh, okay, I can see where he got his inspiration from this. But with the march, the Darth Vader's march or whatever it's called, I forget what was his inspiration for that. But I think the Beethoven's Fifth was part of that. So crazy, really is. But that's cool that video has 71 million views. So classical music really does have a lot of healing effects. So pretty amazing. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, I'll see you guys out on the edge. And we'll play a quick trailer for our Power of the Mind series. Take care, everyone.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? How does the body know how to ride a bicycle or do the Macarena without thinking about it? What is the soul? If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it still make a sound? And is there such a thing as mind over matter? People have been pondering deep questions for millennia, but it all goes back to one. What is consciousness? The body, mind, matter, or the soul? They say, I think, therefore I am. But what's the true power of our minds? How do our brains, minds, and spirits bring us things like works of art, inventions, music, and enlightenment? This may be the very deepest topic that exists in the cosmos. So let's dive deep into it. From the pineal gland to the brain, to the highest heights of heaven, to supernormal abilities. How does it all come together? You may have thought about it before, but you've never heard about the truth like this. Join Edge of Wonder for the Power of the Mind, Part 1. Fantastic superpowers and the brain.